Okay, so here's the situation. I'm not sure the temperature. It's in probably the high 30s right now. It's raining. It's gonna rain for the next several hours, probably 8 hours is what it looks like, till probably 2 in the morning, and it's only like, I don't know, maybe 5:30 or 6. And my Dyneema pack soaked through. My sleeping bag is soaked, so we're 5 miles from the truck, and I'm considering bailing. Okay, let's talk about my Smoky Mountains backpacking trip. So essentially, here is what happened. I had to bail on one of the nights. I went with some awesome people. I went with the Shill brothers, Kevin and Andy, and I went with Bryce Newbold. Great people, awesome backpacking channels. If you don't know who they are, make sure you go and subscribe to them. They are the reason that this trip was actually fun. We had a great time regardless of the absolute horror on night one. And I'm just gonna walk through one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made, like a rookie mistake ever. If you're looking for like trip video from this trip, I really don't have too much. I've got very little. I'll show you what I've got, but it's not much. I was in no mood to be filming at all, and you probably would not have liked me very much had you seen me filming in that condition. I didn't even like me. And normally when I'm assessing my situation, I'll look at the weather, I'll look at the terrain, that kind of stuff, and the weather did say it was gonna rain. But I just sort of brushed it off. I've been in rain lots of times and never had this happen to me on a trip. And also we were kind of going up in elevation. So I assumed, big mistake, that elevation was gonna cause this rain to turn into snow, which it did, but it wasn't until much later and a little bit higher in elevation than we were camping on night 2 actually is when it turned into snow, not night 1. Get to the Smoky Mountains, starts raining. It's probably 1 o'clock. And it did not stop. It didn't stop until probably 2, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't even concerned. I wasn't thinking, oh, my stuff's getting wet. I was thinking, I just want to get to camp. I put way too much faith in the fact that I thought that my Dyneema pack was gonna handle the rain. Unfortunately, backpacks aren't waterproof. Very few backpacks are waterproof. Most of them are not. They have to be like submergible for a certain amount of time for a backpacking company to call them waterproof. They're gonna call them water resistant. And I got to camp, set up my tent, got inside the tent, and pulled out my gear only to find that it was completely drenched, completely soaked. I could wring out my sleeping gear, my sleeping bag, all of it. Just like I had dumped it in a river and decided to put it in my tent. It's about 5 o'clock at this point. It's dark out and it's gonna continue to rain and it's gonna continue to drop in temperature. Much, much colder. It was, I don't know, mid to high 30s at this point, but it was gonna drop into the 20s. Definitely a recipe for hypothermia. And I sat in that tent for like 45 minutes thinking, I do not wanna let people down. I don't wanna let my viewers down. How could you have let this happen? So I didn't wanna risk hypothermia. I didn't have to prove anything to anybody. The smart choice was actually to show people that it is absolutely okay to bail when situations are going to be dangerous and you have a way out. And then I thought, well, you know, I'm 5 miles from the truck. I'm out of here. I hiked out 5 miles in the dark, freezing rain, fog, got to my truck, miserably cold, miserably wet, drove to the nearest cell phone signal, which was maybe a mile down the road, booked the first hotel I could find, got to my hotel, walked in the door, got up to the counter, and the lady is looking at me like, dude, what's wrong with you? I was completely shivering and shaking because I was so cold, having to walk from the truck to the hotel, which made me get cold again. And I said, do you guys have a dryer? And she looked at me and she's like, our dryers are all broken. I'm like, dude, how could this night get any worse? And she says, well, you can give me your stuff and I'll throw it in the dryer that, you know, we use back here for our linens. And I was like, you know what, I don't know if I want to do that because I don't want you messing with all my expensive down gear. Went up to my hotel room and laid out all my gear to dry out for that morning. Just crossing my fingers like, God, please let everything dry out. Miraculously, the down completely dried out. I did not expect that to happen, but all of my clothing was still sopping wet. So my shoes, my socks, all my layers were just wet. I made the call to Kevin because they had a cell phone signal at camp, and I said, hey, I'm back in, man. My down is dry. I'm coming back in. I'm back out. I stayed at a hotel last night, dried out all my gear as best I could. Some of it's still pretty damp, but the sleeping stuff is dry, so that's good. So I'm meeting them. I've got like, I don't know, 5-6 miles to hike in, and lesson learned. And spent the night there, and it was awesome. It was really awesome. All right, campsite. This is campsite 29. It's really cool. There's a kind of a, you know, like a little peninsula here. Nice creek down there. So when I got back home, I wanted to blame my backpack. I did not want to blame me. I wanted to blame everybody else but me. Dan Becker, you did nothing wrong on this trip, which was totally not true. It was 100% my fault. And I got a call scheduled with Hyperlight Mountain Gear, and we got on the phone, and I said, hey, here's what happened. Just help me understand what maybe I did wrong and what I could have done differently. Well, since they don't claim that their backpacks are waterproof, they walked me through what the possible scenario was, and I'm sure this is what happened. So this is the backpack that I used. It's the Hyperlight Mountain Gear Southwest 3400. It's the same as the 2400. Great backpack. My favorite backpack of all time. And the stress point here on the bag is right here. This is where your shoulder straps are gonna connect to the actual bag. On the inside of the bag, they tape all of the seams except for this area because it's a high stress point, which makes sense because if you tape there, it's just gonna rip that tape off, being constantly pulled on. So that is most likely where the water came in, and that totally makes sense based on how everything was in my bag and how it got wet. Not the bag's fault, my fault. I should have 100% used a pack liner or a dry bag or something. So I know that they sell their pod system over at Hyperlight, so I'm probably gonna use something along those lines because their pod systems are just like Dyneema bags that are waterproof essentially, and you can use them as dry bags, so that should work. So I'll look into that. Learn from my mistakes and this trip, and don't assume anything on a backpacking trip. Take your precautions. And get out on trail and be smart. So if you guys like this video, did you like this video? I didn't like making this video, but if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more. I'll put my Instagram right here, and I'll see you on the next one. It's raining. It's gonna rain for the next several hours, probably 8 hours is what it looks like, till probably 2 in the morning, and it's only like, I don't know, maybe 5:30 or 6. And my Dyneema pack soaked through.